Hey BookTube, this is Friday Reads on Saturday. I'm Jen and I talk about audiobooks, usually on Fridays, yes. But I'm getting kind of a reputation for doing this on Saturday. So yeah, yesterday actually I contracted this virus. My husband got it like a week and a half ago and he's still sick. And I was feeling sick yesterday and it's funny, you know, you have that cup of coffee and you feel like, oh, I can take on the day. I've got caffeine in my system, and then it wears off and you go, no, I'm not taking on any more days today, any more of this day. Anyway, yeah, so that's why I didn't get this done yesterday. But I read, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 books last week that I want to tell you about. So let me jump in with Just the Sexiest Man Alive. This is by Julie James. It's narrated on audio by Karen White, and I'm a little kind of embarrassed to say that I read it. I mean, that title, yeah, kind of makes me cringe a little bit. This was kind of silly. You know, it just, I don't know, I have such conflicted feelings about this book because you have this really smart lawyer who is well respected. She's an attorney in Chicago, high-powered attorney. Goes to LA to prosecute a sexual harassment case and then gets pulled off the case to babysit this big movie star that has this role as an attorney coming up, and he wants to kind of pick her brain and figure out how to do the role really well so that it's believable. Like, seriously, this firm who put her on this case, who brought her from this city to put her on this case, is now telling her to go babysit this movie star. And the movie star, you know, he kind of blows her off at first. And then I thought, oh, well, that's probably because he's got some, you know, big secret that he's hiding. You know, he's covering for some family member that's like a gambling addict, or he had a terrible home life or something like that. No, he's just a piece of work. He's just a jerk. He just thinks, you know, everybody ought to come to him and wait on him hand and foot. And like, you know, I have a schedule, but yeah, my assistant scheduled this meeting with you, and yeah, I don't care. It's not that big of a deal. I'm just going to blow you off. And her schedule, she's like got this trial coming up and she's like, what the heck? Okay, the way these characters progressed, I just kind of wanted to smack both of them about half the time, because this high-powered attorney kind of morphs into this hopeless romantic that she's just not sure, you know, about love and all of that kind of thing. She's gotten burned in the past. There's a bit of a love triangle. This kind of jerk actor, Sexiest Man Alive, he's, I don't know, he begins to, I don't know, I guess some layers get pulled back and he turns into a decent person, although I wouldn't go quite all the way to a great person. But, you know, there's the love story, and I'm like, really? I don't know. I just kept expecting things with this book, and then it wouldn't deliver those things. But then I would stop and go, well, okay. You know, what it did deliver, is that okay? But, you know, overall, I give it 3 stars. But Karen White, who narrates a lot of Jill Shalvis's books and other romance novels, is amazing. The woman is amazing as a narrator. So she was the reason I gave this book 3 stars. Otherwise, I think it would be a 2. But she brought it, like, raised the quality of this book up to a 3. So yeah, that's one of those instances where, you know, a narrator can make a book better. It just worked. I also finished Twisted Up. This is by Erin Nicholas. It is book 1 in the Taking Chances series, and it was narrated by Kate Rudd. Another fantastic narrator. I never have anything bad to say about Kate Rudd. Never. She's always good, no matter what she's narrating. This was a book about tornadoes. It's a fire chief, and she has a backstory, and a guy who works, he's like a, I don't even know how to explain it. He's like a person who deals with national disasters, but he's based out of Kansas City, Missouri, and he's up for a job with FEMA, which is the Federal Emergency Management Association. I think that's what it, they deal with things like Hurricane Katrina and, you know, stuff like that. They come in where natural disasters have happened, and they help people clean it up and get back on their feet again. And so So it's the romance between these two people. They've known each other a long time. They grew up together, and yeah, they have a history, and okay, love story right there. It's like, okay, it had a lot more to it than I thought it was going to, and I ended up giving it 3 stars. It was pretty decent. It was a good read. Anything You Can Do is by R.S. Gray and was narrated from 2 points of view by Kimberly Roel and Joshua Kumler. And now this one I really enjoyed. This is a rivalry. The idea here is anything you can do, I can do better. And it is 2 people who have gone off to, they grew up together fighting and trying to outdo each other. And then they go off to medical school. They both become doctors, and they want to come home and take over the practice that is run by like the local doctor. And they both get hired. And he's like, well, you know, I want you both to work together so that you can, so I can see who is going to work out to take over the practice. Well, and you know, she is convinced that this guy, you know, this rival of hers is trying to outdo her and shove her out, when actually that may not be the case. But she breaks her arm, and then that turns into, well, he's going to have, this other doctor is going to have to keep helping you. And so it's a very hate to love story, and it's very sweet, and it's very believable, I have to say. But it was a lot of fun. It was well narrated, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I really did. I ended up giving that one 4 stars. And the other thing I finished was a semi-definitive list of worst nightmares. I can never get that title right. By Krystal Sutherland. It was narrated on audio by Tara Sands. And this is about a girl who is very quirky, very odd. She comes from a very odd family of people who are strange, just odd, strange. Her dad is agoraphobic and lives in the basement. Her mom is addicted to gambling and is always playing the slot machines. And so they have times of, you know, when there's a lot of money available, and then there are times when all the possessions they have start disappearing because she's got to sell them to pay her gambling debts. And then her brother is afraid of the dark. And so, I mean, to the point where the light switches are taped in the on position in the house. The mom believes that something is upstairs. She doesn't know what. Ghosts, presence, you know, something is upstairs. So she moves everybody downstairs in the middle of the night one night and piles furniture up in front of the stairway. So this is the home this girl comes from. And because she's not comfortable in her own skin, she dresses up like characters all the time. So, you know, she'll go to school dressed as Mary Poppins. And she feels like when people look at her, they're looking at Mary Poppins, not at her. And so while this has a lot of humor and quirkiness, that's probably the best word for it, going on, it really underlying is this whole issue of her self-esteem, this main character being able to be comfortable with who she is, and her brother's phobia, just crippling phobia of the dark, and her mother's gambling addiction, and her father's agoraphobia, and her coming to grips with all of these things in a very dysfunctional family. And ultimately coming to grips with the idea that being odd, it doesn't make her special. And so there is a love interest in there who comes from a very, very bad family, not a dysfunctional family, but an abusive home. And so it's the story of their romance. And essentially she makes this list of, I think it's 50 things on this semi-definitive list of worst nightmares, and it's all things she's afraid of. And so she and this love interest guy start confronting those, and he says, you got to do this, you got to try and confront these fears. So it's things like go on a Ferris wheel and jump off a cliff, and yeah, stuff like that. you know, it's things that are not necessarily overly dangerous. They're just things she's afraid of. So it's got a really inventive twist, and it's just a sweet story and a really good story and a really important story for the audience to which it is directed, which is a YA audience. I think it has a lot to say, a lot of really deep, good stuff to say in a very likable, relatable kind of a story, which is not just all those things, but also entertaining because it's so odd and quirky. So, excellent book, really excellent book. And Tara Sands did a great job with it. I was pretty, I don't know that I was impressed, but I was really happy with her narration. I think she did it very well. Overall, I have no complaints with her voices for each of the characters. I think that she kind of vanished into the story, and that is the best kind of narrator. On Anything You Can Do, Kimberly Royal and Joshua Kumler were perfect for that particular book. Those two voices they just brought those characters to life in a wonderful way. So again, great narrators. This was kind of the week of great narrators. So anyway, those were the books that I finished. And then when I put them down, I didn't know what in the world I was going to pick up. And Beth Nieper, who is a friend of mine on Goodreads, and also you can find her name in the people who comment below on a lot of videos that I do. She said, hey, I finished Beartown by Frederik, Backman, and it was amazing. So you have to read it. And I thought, okay, well, I'm not reading anything else right now, and I have no idea what I want to read. I mean, I went through my iTunes, and man, I cleared out a whole lot of stuff that I thought, I am never going to read that. So I picked up Beartown by Frederik Backman. It is available on audio. It is narrated by Marianne Ireland, but it has also been translated from the Swedish by Neil Smith. And, you know, when we've talked before about the importance of a narrator being recognized, somebody in the comments brought up the fact that we also need to recognize translators. And I was thinking about that when I saw this. I thought, oh, I got to remember to bring that to everyone's attention when I talk about this book, because he is critical. We wouldn't be able to read this book in English if he had not translated it. So Beartown is set in a town. I don't know if it's in Canada or not. I think it's in the US. It's in the northern US, and it's set in a hockey town where that is the thing that sets this town apart, is their hockey team. And it's just looking at the influence that has on the economy of the town and the people of the town and the thinking of the town, everything about the town. And there's something that happens. The book starts out saying there was a day when, I can't remember if it says a teenager or a young person or someone walked out into the forest with a shotgun and put it against the head of another person. They just say another person, and pulled the trigger. And this is how that came about. So this is that story. I am really intrigued, and I'm only to about chapter maybe 6, and they're quick chapters. So it's interesting. A lot of interesting characters have been introduced. And so I've never read a book by this author. And so, yeah, it's intriguing. I also picked up The Named, which is by Marianne Curley, because one of my friends on Goodreads picked this up and said she reread it and it was amazing and she'd forgotten. And I thought, I have that trilogy. Actually, it is The Named, and then The Dark, and then The Key. And the thing that I think is notable about this trilogy, this is the Guardians of Time trilogy. And the thing that's notable about it is that Marianne Curley is Australian. And so this is not some American author who just threw together a YA dystopian or a fantasy or whatever you want to call it. It has to do with time travel. But she's Australian, and the books were published in, or at least the first one was published in 2002. So because I had them, I thought, I'm going to read those. So I'm reading these. I'm reading right now The Named. I'm not very far in, maybe chapter 3. No, I think I made it to chapter 4 last night. But you know how I am with trying to read with my eyes. It's like, it's the last thing I do because I'm doing other things. And I'm kind of busy right now with some other stuff that I'm doing. I also picked up on my iPad The Loose Ends List by Carrie Firestone. I was hoping that this would be on audio, but it wasn't. This is a debut novel from, I think it was published last April or this past April in 2017. And it's about a girl whose grandmother is dying and decides she's going to take everybody on a cruise, and she's not going to come back from the cruise because she knows she's going to die. And so it's what happens. So I'm sure I'll have a lot to tell you next week when I talk about it. But yeah, kind of a YA contemporary. It has some real potential. And of course, Michaela, my good friend Michaela, read it and liked it. So me and my friend Lisa are reading it. And then, just today, I was going through my Goodreads, kind of catching up with everything. And I saw where someone, my friend Karen, had liked a review done by someone else who's a friend of hers on a book called Our Souls at Night by Kent Haruf. And on audio, this is narrated by Mark Bramhall. And it's very short. It's only 3 hours and 28 minutes long. So it's really more of a novella. It's the story of two elderly people. He's a widower, she's a widow, and they've been neighbors for years and years. And she's lonely, and she approaches him and says, I can't sleep at night. And I think that it might be better if I had someone sleeping with me, just as a companion. This is not a romantic sexual thing at all. It's about having someone there that's warm, that I can talk to, that kind of makes it okay to fall asleep. So it's the story of their relationship. Well, someone in the reviews on Goodreads under this book heading said that this was being made into a movie. And I thought, ooh, well, it was published in 2016, or the movie was supposed to be done in 2016 or something like that. So I went to IMDb, which is the Internet Movie Database. It's imdb.com. And I looked it up. It's Robert Redford and Jane Fonda. And it came out yesterday, like 29th of September. I couldn't believe it. I thought, oh my gosh. It's a Netflix movie. So you can go on Netflix and watch it. And I'm going to. And I'm going to pick up the novella and on audio and listen to it because it's so short. And then I'm going to watch the movie because I think that just sounds really, really good. An interesting kind of a look at life. I'll be interested to see what happens in the story. So the reviews on it are very good. I think it has like a 3.9 rating on Goodreads. So yeah, I just think that looks really good. So if you've read any of the books that I've read this past week and have any opinions on them, by all means, please let me know. And thank you, Beth, for the recommendation on Beartown because I'm really enjoying it. And yeah, that's it for now. So have a great weekend, and I will just see you next time. Thanks for watching.